the light show for the MC5?
Well, every week was a different adventure at the Grande doing the light show. We used to, I was still working, I had a record store right down on Cass Avenue, and somebody would stop by from Translove Energies and pick me up, and we'd go to the Grande Ballroom and do the light show each night on the weekend. Wasn't Magic Veil.
Not Magic Veil?
And that was Jerry Youngkin's light show. And we bought slide projectors and some slides from him originally. And I said I didn't want to do anybody else's light show, so I remember I spent weeks doing handmade slides. But we, mostly it was Gary Grimshaw for a while, Lenny Sinclair and I, and sometimes Sigrid Smith, Fred Smith's wife, and anybody else that we would could get up there at different times, because it just used to get very, very hot.
Yes.
I remember we did a Cream concert, and it was 98 degrees outside that day, and it got to be about 120 degrees on the light stand because we had 4 overhead projectors, and those were all like 1,000, 1,500 watt, and we had 4 slide projectors up there, and it was, people were passing out because of the heat, and we eventually got some buckets of ice and water up there, and it got near the end. I believe Gary and I started throwing buckets of ice water off the light stand onto people, and they just loved it, because everybody was just drenched anyway, and the place was jammed, and there were people with their heads in the speakers up there because they just loved the Cream so much. But so many incidents happened. I mean, like I said, every weekend there was something different going on. But talking about the Rob Tyner tribute and benefit, I ran into Lenny Sinclair. She said, "Oh, would you like to go backstage?" And I had, one of the ways that I kind of got involved with the MC5 was I grew up living 5 houses away from Michael Davis, the bass player. And I remember I was going to art school and he was going to Wayne State University, and he told me that he had, we were playing street hockey, I believe, and he said, "Oh, I'm in this band now, and we're going to have this single coming out." And I didn't see him for about 2 weeks, and he came back and he says, "You won't believe it, but we were supposed to come out with this song, Gloria, but a band called the Shadows of Night did it, and it became a hit, and they had to scrap releasing it as their first single." But going to this show, I had wanted to run into Michael Davis. He's been living in Phoenix for about the last 15 years. He, like many of the other rock and rollers, went through a little prison break and down in Lexington, Kentucky, and then moved out to Phoenix, but was in town for this. And when Lenny said I could go backstage, I decided to take her up on it. And I had never been in the State Theater before, and we had to go up about 4 flights of stairs to get into these dressing rooms. And there were so many people back there, and everybody wanted to be backstage with these, the famous MC5. And actually, I think I just waved hello to Dennis Thompson and talked with Michael Davis for about 10 or 15 minutes. And then everybody was out front waiting for the MC5 to go on stage. I think I went in and had drinks with Scott from the Rationals. And we went downstairs and were on the sides of the stage. We were shooing certain people away, and I luckily got to stand back there. But again, it's a situation where I sometimes wish I could just be out front, because standing on the sides is wonderful the first few times you do it, but afterwards it's much more fun to go see the show, even though you know exactly what's going to go on. And it loses a bit after a few times of being backstage. But I remember it took 15 or 20 minutes to get Fred Smith out of the dressing room. He just wasn't ready. Finally came out and the people went crazy. And it was quite a good show for a band that hadn't played together in at least 10 years, probably more.
Robin Sommers, it's been a real thrill.
Thank you.
It's been a real honor to work with you.
See you tomorrow. We start all over again, eh?
All right, part 2. Thanks.
No problem.